All right, welcome back, everybody. We're pleased to have you join us again. This session is called Designing Course Outlines to Facilitate Transfer. You guys are really killing it in the chat and the question and answer. Please keep it up. We love it. We're getting lots of comments regarding the music selection. So yeah, please make sure you put in your requests for music. We're happy to try to accommodate. Looks like we're committing pretty hard to the Taylor Swift motif and the many jokes that I've made so far. This session, I'm going to once again welcome Dr. Fiona McQuarrie, who is going to give us a session on designing course outlines to help facilitate transfer. Course outlines are a major source of information. Without them, we would not be able to evaluate transfer credit, and we wouldn't be able to articulate them in the BC Transfer Guide. This session is going to provide an overview of the most common elements of a course outline across the system and provide some suggestions for you of the types of information that you should include to help facilitate transfer. I can already see there's some questions in the chat, and we will be getting to that. Just a reminder, we will be switching over to the live portion of this event starting at around 11:20, where Fiona will join us. So please keep the questions in chat coming, and we'll see you after this video.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, and welcome to the session on designing course outlines to facilitate transfer. In this session, we're going to be looking at some of the features of the course outlines that are used in the BC transfer system. And we're also going to look at how course outlines relate to the transferability of a course. So course outlines in the BC transfer system are the major source of information when a request for transfer credit is sent for evaluation. Evaluators use the information in the course outline to assess the equivalency of the course or the program with the offerings at their own institution. And to some extent, that assessment by the evaluator is always subjective. It's based on each institution's individual curriculum and courses and how those compare with the course that is for which transfer is being requested. So there's really no magic formula as to if an element is included or excluded, whether that increases or decreases the probability that the course will receive transfer credit. However, it's very useful to know which information is usually provided on course outlines to facilitate the process of transfer evaluation. So the purpose of this project is to identify the most common elements in the course outlines that are used in the BC transfer system, and to make some recommendations on designing course outlines to make the process of evaluation as smooth as possible. I should mention too that what I'm presenting here today is the findings from a research report that I've been working on, and hopefully the finished report will be published by BCCAT in a couple of months. Okay, so in most post-secondary institutions, there's two kinds of course outlines. There are these official course outline and the syllabus. The official course outline is the outline that's developed usually when a course is started. It's developed by the faculty member or the department head, and it's the document representing the course that goes through the institution's internal approval process. And if a course is revised, the official course outline is also used when the approval is given for the revised version of the course. The syllabus, on the other hand, is the document that is distributed in class each time the course is taught. It's usually created by the faculty member who's teaching that class. It includes some elements from the official course outline, but it also includes specific information for that section of the course, such as the instructor's contact information, due dates for assignment, those sorts of information. When a course request for articulation is sent through the TCS, either the course outline or the syllabus can be sent. In the system, we also have the BCCAT transfer-friendly course outline template. This was created in 2008. It hasn't been revised since then, but it's still very useful in identifying the most relevant elements of a course outline that are used in an evaluation for transfer. So I'm going to talk a bit now about the methodology that I used to carry out this research project. The first was to review course outline related policies and procedures at BC Transfer System member institutions. So the types of information that I collected from institutional websites were first actual policies or procedures that laid out elements that had to be included in course outlines at the institution. Some institutions also have course outline templates that faculty or department heads can use to develop course outlines. Some of those, quite understandably, are private. They're in a password-protected site on the institutional website. So for the institutions where I couldn't find a specific policy relating to course outline content, or I couldn't get a course outline template, we then went into the TCS and pulled a couple of samples of course outlines that had been sent for evaluation requests from that particular institution. So when all of this was put together, we ended up with data from 36 of the 39 BC Transfer System member institutions. The other data set that we collected was to look at the TCS and look at the comments that were made when a transfer credit request was denied or when it was closed. As of 2023, if an institution decides to close or deny a transfer credit request, it's required to provide a reason. Before that, there was space on the evaluation form to provide a reason, and institutions could provide that if they wanted, but it wasn't mandatory. So when I put all this information together, I discovered that 23 of the 39 BC Transfer System member institutions have specific policies or procedures that lay out the elements of course outlines that are expected to be included in the outlines at that institution. These are not always policies that are specifically labeled as course outline content policies. At some institutions, this information was found in places like course development policies or faculty performance evaluation policies. I also found that 16 of those 23 institutions that did have some policy relating to course outline content did not make a distinction between official course outlines and syllabi that are distributed in class. But what I did find when I put all this information together and counted the frequency of the different elements, that there were 14 common elements that were present on all institutions' course outlines. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show these to you using the BC CAT transfer-friendly course outline template. So the elements that are the common elements are highlighted on this screen. And you can see that the elements are the course code. This is usually the subject of the code, like math or biology. The course number, the number of credits that the institution has assigned to the course, the title of the course as it's shown in the institutional calendar, the department or the program that's offering the course, the calendar description of the course, the total number of instructional hours and the number of weeks that the course runs for, whether the course has any pre or co-requisites that students need to have before they can enroll in the course. The learning objectives, and this was an interesting one because some institutions also have program level learning objectives or learning outcomes and or institutional level learning outcomes. So generally the way this information was presented was with the course learning outcomes laid out. And if there were institutional or program level course learning objectives, those were usually presented in a way that showed how the course learning objectives or learning outcomes correlated to the program level or the institutional level course learning outcomes. The activities in the course, the evaluation components, and the weight that's given to each one. And there's also the required materials. This could be textbooks, it could be online resources, but anything that students are required to have access to be able to participate in the course. Now, there are other elements that I also identified on the course outlines, and these are not required elements at most institutions. They are at some, but they occurred frequently enough that I'm going to mention them. One was PLAR, Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. Generally, this was a statement about whether the course was eligible for PLAR credit, and if so, what method would be used to assess the student's knowledge to see if what they had acquired elsewhere was comparable to the learning that they would have acquired from taking the course. Land and territorial acknowledgements are a fairly recent addition, but my sense was that these are becoming more common in course outlines, and also an indication of the semester or the year when the course was first offered. This was particularly prevalent when the current version of the course was a revised version from the original form. Course outlines also usually list policies. The most common ones that I saw were academic integrity or academic misconduct policies, policies on student attendance and absences, how those would be, those might affect the student's grade or how they would be assessed, conduct in the classroom, whether students were permitted to record lectures for their own reference, and where the copyright for the course materials resided. And most course outlines also had some information on accessibility for students that need academic accommodations to be able to participate in the course. There was also usually information on information technology problems. Now, one interesting thing that I noticed was, especially given how many online course offerings there have been in the last couple of years, that there was only one institution that made a distinction between its code of conduct in the classroom for in-person classes and a code of conduct for online classes. I also found it interesting that for the information technology information, very few institutions had explicit information as to what students should do if they couldn't get online, or if they couldn't get into their student account, or if they couldn't get on to the learning platform that was being used for the course. Now, I should also mention that some institutions put these policies in full on their course outlines, and others just provide links for the students to go and look at on their own. So the second part of the data collection, as I mentioned, was a review of the comments in the TCS about whether the reason for closing or denying a transfer credit request. Closing a transfer credit request means that there was no decision on the request and no result is posted in the BC Transfer Guide. Denying a transfer credit request is a decision of no credit, and that's what's posted in the BC Transfer Guide for that particular course. We should also know that institutions that receive transfer credit requests have the option to ask for additional information before they make a decision on the request. And usually this is asking for a specific piece or pieces of information that haven't been provided with the initial request for articulation. So we collected a data set of just over 3,500 reasons for closing transfer credit requests from one calendar year. And we had just under 1,000 reasons for denying credit, and that data were drawn from this spring. So in looking at them, what we found was the most common reason for closing a request that was related to the course outline was that the course outline that was provided was out of date. Other reasons were that there was no course outline, that it was not attached to the transfer credit request. And another reason was that the institution had already processed a request for the same course with the same course outline. Denying requests, again, the course outline missing from the request was the most frequent reason that was given. The content of the course outline might have indicated the course was not university level, and courses need to be university level courses to be listed in the BC Transfer Guide. And there are also some comments that the information on the course outline did not match the information that was provided on the form requesting articulation that was provided with the course outline. But to put all of this in context, when I went through the reasons for closure, of which there were 3,500, only 20 of those reasons were related to something to do with the course outline. And with nearly 1,000 reasons for denying credit, only 14 of those reasons were related to the course outline. So we can see that from those proportions that clearly course outline content does not appear to be a major factor in the decision to close or deny credit. The most common reason for both closing requests and denying requests by far was that there was no equivalent course at the receiving institution. And this was the reason that was given for about half of the requests in both categories. Now, with regards to institutions' options to request more information, we weren't able to access the specific information that was being asked for in that communication between the sending and the receiving institution. But just to give you a sense of how often this happens, in the 2022-23 academic year, at any given time, there were about 5,000 open requests for articulation in the transfer credit system. And of those, about 100 of them usually were waiting for further information to be provided by the sending institution. So without being able to look at those requests to see exactly what kind of information is being requested, just that proportion tells us that it's not that common for a receiving institution to request more information about the course that has been sent by the sending institution. So to summarize, the course outlines used in the BC transfer system appear to have a relatively consistent format with a set of 14 common elements, and transfer requests are rarely denied because of something to do with a deficiency in the course outline. So finally, some recommendations. These are intended for faculty members, for department heads, for people working on policy or course development, or for anyone who's wondering what they should be putting in their course outline to help the process of transfer. The first recommendation is that institutions, if possible, should have a single policy that lays out the required course outline elements. This is partly to support the work of people who are developing course outlines. If the policy is clearly labeled as something like course outlines, then it will be very easy for the people doing that work to find that information. If it's in another policy, such as course development or performance evaluation, the people who need that information may not know that that's where it's located. So the easier that institutions can make this information and the more clearly that users can be directed for it, that will help the process of developing transfer-friendly course outlines. Also, the distinction between course outlines and syllabi is quite an important one. And policies and procedures, I believe, will be more effective if they make that distinction. As I mentioned, the documents have common content, but they serve different purposes. When a student submits a request for transfer credit, generally the syllabus is a more helpful document for a transfer credit evaluation because the syllabus describes the course as it was when the student took it. An official course outline will have some of that information, but it's a more generalized document, and it may not necessarily reflect all that the student learned when they took the version of the course that they were enrolled in. So making that distinction in policy and in procedures may also help to provide more accurate and more focused information for a transfer credit request. Ensuring that whatever policy or procedure there is includes the most common information on course outlines and on syllabi, those 14 elements that I presented. Most institutions, I think, are doing a very good job of this already. But if an institution or an individual is starting from scratch in developing a policy or a template, looking at that list of the most common elements is a really good starting point to make sure that all that commonly used information is included in the course outline. Also, not all institutions have templates for course outlines or for syllabi. Obviously, a template has to have some flexibility to incorporate information that's specific to a particular course or a particular type of program. But a generalized template is a really good starting point for individuals who are developing this material for the first time. And it also ensures that the information in the course outlines or in the syllabi is consistent across the entire institution. So a template can be a really useful tool as well. And finally, receiving institutions should think about whether course outlines or syllabi, or maybe both, are the most appropriate documentation for transfer credit requests. As I mentioned, for a student-initiated request, a syllabus may be more informative. For other requests, a official course outline may be more appropriate. But if receiving institutions have a preference for one document or the other in particular situations, that can help sending institutions in knowing what sort of documentation they should be providing for a transfer credit request. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much for attending, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Tally.
Okay. Once again, Mike, I can't see the Whova screen, so I'm relying on you.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm pleased to once again welcome Dr. Fiona McQuarrie, a Special Projects Officer, who's here to answer your questions. Just a reminder, please keep putting your questions into the Q&A. We are able to go through them in order as they are received, and Fiona is here to answer your questions as best as she can. I might help out a little bit as well. The first question is from Laura Bushi from College of New Caledonia. If we can adopt a standard template between institutions with advancement in AI, is there any desire for BCCAT to create something that can check for similarities between outlines and give a percentage, kind of like a plagiarism checking software that's currently used by many institutions? What are your thoughts on that, Fiona?
Well, first, because each institution in the BC transfer system is autonomous, and because BCCAT does not have authority over these things, it's up to each institution to choose whichever course template suits its particular type of courses and its own internal approval processes. So there's a fairly low likelihood, I would say, that there will ever be a common course template used across all institutions in the BC transfer system. I'd also add that this is probably something that institutions could do themselves if they wanted to, although there is not a consistent percentage that is always required for a course to be equivalent. There are some accreditation processes that require courses to be have a certain percentage of equivalency to be transferable within a discipline, but there's no system-wide standard as to what percentage is comparable or acceptable for a course to be deemed as equivalent.
I will just add on to that there is a project down in the United States called the Open Syllabus Project. And you can Google that one, and that actually does take a look at trying to develop an algorithm that compares course syllabus that are found online and offer a percentage of overlap. I know that it's been in development for a couple of years, and that does have some potential. This was all being developed prior to the emergence of AI. So perhaps this is another good question to bring forward to Rich McHugh from UVic, who's going to be presenting tomorrow morning as part of our keynote on AI and ChatGPT. All right, so we have a couple more questions into the chat. So I'm just going to go through them in the order that I see them. This is again from Laura. Is there a place in the TCS where we can see the reason why it was denied or closed internally or externally? Internally, yes, there is. So if you go into the TCS, you can click on the agreement details. And in the agreement details, it will actually provide the reason that if a course was denied, it will provide the reason that that course was denied. Up until about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm going to say this was an optional field. We have actually now made that required so that when an institution denies credit or closes a request, we do ask them to put in the reason for that decision so that it is captured. So you can find it within the TCS. If you're having any trouble, please do send me an email and I'll be happy to provide more direct instructions. Question from Stephanie Boychuk, who is literally sitting in our boardroom right now. Will the templates be provided that we can use to build from and bring back to our institutions? So Fiona?
I would say start with the BCCAT transfer-friendly course outline template, which is available on the BCCAT website. Also, if you want to see examples of course outlines from specific institutions, you can always go and ask your registrar to see if there's a course outline or course outlines that have been received from a particular institution, and look at those to see if there's a consistent format.
All right, we have another question from the chat from Stephen Chase. You shared that the most common reason for closing a transfer credit request was that the course outline was out of date. Is there a consensus on how current a course outline is expected to be?
I can't. I didn't have access to the course outlines that generated those requests within the TCS or generated that response. I think the issue that was being mentioned there was that the course outline was not consistent with the dates of the course that were presented in the TCS form. I mentioned in the previous session, though, that some institutions have a policy or a procedure where they won't accept transfer credit that's a certain number of years old, depending on the discipline, particularly in areas like computing science, where technology evolves quite rapidly. Some institutions have a blanket policy that they will not accept transfer credit requests from a course that is, or a course that was taken more than 7 to 10 years ago, and others have it for specific programs where course content changes more rapidly. So that no, the quick answer is no, there is no consistent guideline, but individual institutions may have policies about out of date, what they consider an out of date course.
All right, please keep the questions coming into the Q&A. I have a question for you, Fiona. It's around instructor qualifications. And do you feel that it is a good practice for instructor qualifications to be included on a course outline or a syllabus?
In the course outlines and the syllabi that I reviewed, on official course outlines, there's usually a request for the name of the person who developed the course and designed it initially. It's not common to see that on a syllabi or a syllabus, which is handed out in class. It may be useful in assessing whether a person has the level of degree that would make them generally make them qualified to teach or design the course. But that's a somewhat subjective judgment. It might also depend on what discipline the person obtained their degree in. So it can be useful, but I'd say it's not essential. It would usually be more common to find that on the official course outline, I would say.
All right, and then early in your presentation, you drew a distinction between a syllabus and a course outline. If a student requests transfer credit but doesn't have a syllabus from when they took the course, is a course outline enough documentation to send in with a transfer credit request?
It can be. It really depends on the evaluator who's looking at the request and what information they feel they need to assess equivalency. If the student took the course fairly recently, but the course was actually developed and implemented a decade ago or more, the course outline may be quite different from what the student actually learned in the course. And I say that realizing that not all students keep their syllabi from when they took the actual course. I know that some institutions may request the student to, if they can, to go back to the instructor and see if they can get the syllabus from that particular time when they took the course. So a syllabus is more informative than an official course outline, but an official course outline may be sufficient if the evaluator of the transfer credit request feels that has enough information for their decision.
All right, and I see that Rob has put into the chat a link to BC-CAT's position statement on instructor qualifications. Thank you for doing that, Rob. We are actually at time, so I want to thank Fiona once again for this presentation. This was very informative. Thank you to everybody who participated in the question and answer and the chat. We're going to take a 1-minute break, and then we're going to be right back at it with the digital learning strategy, where we will be welcoming from the ministry Ben Farrell. So I'll see you in about 1 minute's time.